Did you know there was a time when nearly one-third of Europe's population disappeared? This horrifying tragedy was caused by a deadly disease known as the Black Death. In this video, we will explore what the Black Death was, how it spread, and how it changed Europe forever. The Black Death, also known as the bubonic plague, was one of the deadliest pandemics in human history. It occurred during the mid-14th century, between 1347 and 1351, and caused widespread devastation across Europe. The disease was caused by a bacterium called Yersinia pestis, which was primarily transmitted through fleas that infested black rats. The name Black Death was not used during the time of the plague itself. It was given later in the 17th century by European writers and historians. The term likely comes from the dark spots or blackened skin caused by internal bleeding, and it also reflected the darkness, fear, and death that surrounded the epidemic. It is believed to have originated in Central Asia, most likely in the region that is now modern-day China or Kyrgyzstan. It began spreading westward along trade routes, such as the Silk Road, eventually reaching the port city of Kaffa in Crimea. From there, it traveled to Europe via trading ships, with the first major outbreak in Italy around 1347. Once it arrived in Europe, the disease spread rapidly due to several factors: overcrowded cities, poor hygiene, and the complete lack of medical knowledge at the time. Streets were filthy, garbage was dumped openly, and people lived in close quarters, making it easy for fleas and rats to thrive. The plague quickly moved across Europe, devastating countries like Italy, France, England, Germany, and Spain. With no understanding of how the disease spread, communities were powerless to stop it, and the death toll rose at an alarming rate. It caused terrifying symptoms that made the disease both painful and horrifying to witness. Infected people often developed painful, swollen lumps called buboes in the armpits, neck, or groin, which turned black due to internal bleeding. Other symptoms included high fever, vomiting blood, severe fatigue, and in some cases, mental confusion or delirium. The disease progressed so quickly that a person could die within just 2 to 5 days after the first signs appeared. The suffering was intense. Victims experienced unbearable pain, fever, and fear, knowing death was near. It is estimated that the Black Death killed between 25 to 50 million people in Europe, which was roughly 30% to 50% of the entire population at that time. Due to the lack of scientific knowledge, many people believed that the plague was a punishment from God for their sins. They turned to religious rituals, self-punishment, and even blamed minorities, thinking it was divine anger rather than a natural disease. It had a profound and long-lasting impact on European society. One of the most immediate effects was a severe shortage of labor. With so many workers gone, farms were abandoned, businesses collapsed, and the demand for laborers increased. This shift gave peasants and workers more power to demand better wages and working conditions, which began to weaken the feudal system that had dominated Europe for centuries. Economically, trade declined in many regions, and prices of goods fluctuated, disrupting markets. Socially, the massive loss of life broke down the traditional class structures, and people began to rethink their place in society. Spiritually, the Church, which had been the central institution of life, could not provide answers or relief, leading many to question its authority. This growing doubt eventually contributed to future movements like the Renaissance and the Reformation, as people sought new ways to understand the world beyond religious explanations. The Black Death eventually came to an end, not because of any major medical breakthrough, but due to a combination of natural and social factors. At that time, doctors did not fully understand the cause of the disease, and modern medicine had not yet developed effective treatments. However, over time, the disease began to fade as infected populations either died or developed some resistance. People also started to adopt basic preventive measures such as quarantining ships and isolating sick individuals. In fact, the word quarantine comes from the Italian word quaranta, meaning 40, as ships were kept isolated for 40 days before passengers could enter cities. Some cities that enforced strict public health rules, like Venice, managed to reduce the spread. Additionally, the arrival of colder weather reduced the activity of fleas and rats, which helped slow down the transmission. While there was no true cure at the time, these changes, along with the natural decline of outbreaks, eventually brought the plague to an end in most regions of Europe by the early 1350s. History doesn't just tell us what happened. It teaches us who we are. The story of the Black Death is not just about death, but also about survival, adaptation, and the strength of communities in times of crisis. And that brings us to the end of this journey into one of the darkest chapters in human history: the Black Death. It's a reminder of how far we've come in science, medicine, and public health, and how powerful human resilience can be, even in the face of devastation. If there's any other part of history you're curious about, whether it's ancient empires, hidden stories, or untold events, let me know in the comments. Your suggestions shape this channel, so don't hesitate to drop a topic below. I'd love to bring it to life for you in a future video. Just comment what you'd like to learn next, and I'll make sure to turn it into the next historical journey. If you found this video informative or thought-provoking, make sure to like it and subscribe to the channel for more historical deep dives. Don't forget to hit the bell icon so you never miss a story that shaped our world. Thanks for watching, and stay curious.